Howard and Spitz. I managed to pull something good. So, we're reacting to how close we get magic with engineering by Scrapper, so go give him some love.
I've been watching a lot of Dr. Stone recently.
Alright, guys. No idea who he is. My best guess is the Philosopher's Stone, which turns things into other things.
That's it. That's the intro.
I do my dance while I'm counting up the bands.
Is magic real? Is a dumb question that I do not need to answer. However, it does depend on what you define as magic. There are a lot of
There's an argument that electronics are magic because you have things on funny silicon rock, and that funny silicon rock can think now once you run electricity through it. Tell me that isn't magic.
magic systems and methods of casting, and we don't really give a fuck because we want fireballs. The idea is to handwave away as little stuff as possible. There's obviously some things that are just plain impossible, but there's also some things that just don't have a profit incentive for being made. The real kicker is that I actually think we have some improvements over fictional magic here in the real world, and I will get to that. I will. But why would you trust me with all this knowledge about engineering and psychology and literature? I have no clue. I go to college.
The equivalent to I cast fireball in chemistry is mixing together fluorine and water. I think fluorine? Working on the... Nope, not that one. That one, extremely reactive francium. That's the one I was thinking of. Mix that with water and that's the closest you can get with for, I cast fireball!
College. If you're someone who loves science, eventually you get to the point where the things you're studying sound completely made up, like Cherenkov radiation, corona discharge, all of wireless communications, and so on and so on, whatever. And if you think about it, there actually is quite a bit of similarity between something like Cherenkov radiation and magic. There's a big discharge of energy happening reliably from a source that you don't really understand or can't see. These three things...
I can guarantee you, the people that study nuclear power understand entirely what's going on. I am almost certain. I'm almost certain they understand exactly what's going on with Cherenkov radiation, but I do not. May be very knowledgeable on a lot of things, but nuclear stuff? No. I am not.
Things, energy discharge, reliability, and a third one that I'll mention in a bit are going to be how we're going to judge how feasible each school and sub-school and type of magic is. Now, one scummy thing that magic does is it tends to kind of ignore the scaling of energy. Like, you'll get things like levitation lumped in together with fireball, even though there's like
I cast fireball
magnitude of difference in terms of energy discharge. So for some types of magic, our limitation is going to be this is far too much energy. But if it isn't, we have two tools at our disposal: electricity and chemistry, which are both very compact ways of storing energy that we can easily transform into other types of energy. There's actually one more energy source that I forgot to mention, and that's radiation. You might think that this is like the holy grail of power because it's so energy dense, but it actually kind of sucks. With something like electricity or chemistry, you can pretty much start and stop.
This reminds me of a post that I saw a while back where this alien species came to visit Earth, and the alien species was like, wait, y'all haven't found glorbones? That's like a big thing in physics. How did you get this far without knowing about glorbones? And we're just looking at them like, what do you mean glorbones? If you're talking about antimatter, then we found that. And the alien species are just like, what? Anti-what?
Stop the reaction at will, or at least control it pretty well. But something like radium-226 is just throwing out evil kill rays constantly. So if your goal is to give someone like radiation poisoning, I guess it counts as a spell. But other than that, it's also super expensive and also super illegal. What kind of magic is most realistic? We're going to be using D&D's 8 schools of magic because I did extensive and exhaustive research, and it turns out all the other ones are just slightly worse.
Enhancement, transmutation, conjuration, I should probably move this. Discernment, specialization, manipulation, and mission. China! I love Hangzhou.
Worse versions. Conjuring, summoning creatures or objects is fully impossible, like just straight up lost cause. It violates at least 2 laws of thermodynamics, and even if you were to say something like, I don't know, the air molecules transform into carbon or something, there's just like no protons, the energy's not there, it's not gonna happen. Necromancy is actually not fully impossible, at least not in theory. Obviously, it's not easy.
First aid is just necromancy. You're telling me that we can restart hearts? You're telling me that we can restart hearts with the power of electricity? And you're telling me electricity, in the same sentence, electricity is not magic?
Nor in the realm of human possibility, but in theory, you're just giving the brain and the heart a little kick, you know? Like a defibrillator can do that. Divination, telling objective truths about the future. I don't care how much time travel, multiverse nonsense you throw at me, it just makes no sense. Transmutation though, not too bad, like changing the properties of a creature or object. Obviously we're not getting like animorphs, but we do have color changing sunglasses.
Here's your looking up genetically modified food.
Abjuration, defense, and counter magic, totally chill. I would put
half of your stuff that you eat is genetically modified. And some of you in the comments may be like, well, genetically modified food is genetically modified. You do not understand what the fuck genetically modified means. Genetically modified just means that a couple genes were modified. That's genetically modified. It could be a single, I forgot what it's called. I don't know what it's called, but it's those, things that you can flip one of those, that's genetically modified food. You've been lied to about genetic modification. You've been lied to. Most genetically modified food is completely fine. In fact, most genetically modified food is literally just there to extend the shelf life of that food. My source, you know what? I'll do it right now. What do most genetically modified food get genetically modified for? GMO corn that produces proteins that are toxic to certain insect pets, but not to humans, pets, livestock, or other animals. Most GMO soy is used for food for animals, predominantly in poultry and livestock, making soybean oil. It is also used in ingredients, processed foods. GMO corn was created to be resistant to bullworms and help revive the Alabama cotton industry. GMO corn not only provides a reliable source of corn for the textile industry, it is also used to make cottonseed oil, which is used in packaged foods and in many restaurants for frying. Point is, you've been lied to about genetic modification. You've been lied to. It's not a big deal. Yes, the name may sound scary, but most lactic acid is in your muscles. Wanna know what lactic acid is? It's a byproduct of your muscles burning through oxygen too quick and thus producing byproducts from making ATP, or the energy that is used for the cells and muscles, making ATP without oxygen, thus making lactic acid. Lactic acid is pretty benign. Wouldn't recommend it, but it's not bad. Radiation. Radiation is another thing that sounds scary until you actually know what it is. Radiation includes stuff like the light from the screen you're seeing. That's radiation. Radiation is like electromagnetic radiation, particle radiation, like alpha, beta, and gamma rays. That's the one that your favorite, totally not biased source relies on. But yeah, you've been lied to about a lot of things by the media. If you don't want to be lied to about a lot of things, consider following my second channel, which will be in my bio.
Also, something like the alarm spell from D&D, completely doable. Illusion and enchantment and anything that affects the brain is kind of in the meh territory because we don't know how to do that super precisely yet. I'm not a neuroscientist, but from the research that I did do, it looks like you have to fine-tune it a lot, and it's not really like a spur-of-the-moment thing. But the most important, the reason why you clicked on this video, evocation. This one we can do, and it's actually not even that hard. With either electricity or chemistry, we can do most of these. Fire, electricity, sound, lights, like a billion other things. There's just one tiny little issue. The inverse square law states that energy drops off pretty steeply as you get further away. This is a big problem for light and sound, but in practice,
Yeah,
it's also...
lasers have this problem. You can't make a giant death laser because of the inverse square law. You have to really be goated at math in order to even attempt it, and even then it's not guaranteed.
Also a big problem for fire and electricity and, like, you know, basically everything. So that third thing we mentioned earlier is actually distance, or well, kind of. In order to be feasible, a spell has to either be collimated so that it goes in a straight line, or it has to be small enough that it can be thrown without being noticed. Yes, that is a grenade, fine. Let's address the elephant in the room. At the end of the day, magic is a human thing. It's only cool to us because we perceive it as being cool. So the premise of this video is less about how do we break...
What's that quote? Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
break the laws of physics, which usually requires like $1 billion in funding, and more of a how do we trick people into thinking that we broke the laws of physics. So you might think, okay, well, what's the difference between this and like a magic trick? And the difference is that we're actually causing an effect. We're just also adding in a little spice in there. This is where we start really optimizing our stuff. Some types of magic, like...
Fun fact, subliminal messaging is a real thing. We just call it advertising. It's way more boring than you think. Most things are, actually. Like, there is indeed a secret cabal of a secret cabal of people that are ruling over you. It's called a corporation. Way more boring than the government controls everything. No, it's really, really boring. It's, you spend your life working every day for a corporation. That's who rules you. It's really, really boring in comparison to the government ruling over you. If the government was really doing the stuff that some people say that it's doing, the Wall Street Journal would have been dead. This is why I get conspiracy theories, because they're fun, but everything's a conspiracy theory if you don't know how anything works. Like, the government is controlling your finance. No. You just suck at finance. The government is controlling the stock market. No, it's literally a random number. Most human activity is a random number. It's really, really boring if you go deeper than the surface.
Light or sound are pretty much only going to be used on other people, so we can use a couple of quirks of the human eyes and ears to achieve things that would otherwise be impossible. For example, persistence of vision. You know how moving around a light gets you like a little glowing trail? We can do that same thing with a motor, and suddenly we have like a glowing Freerun style casting sigil. You might think this is cheating. Fine. That's fine. You're wrong and I'm right, so it's no sweat off my back. So, now that we have our foolproof magic feasibility chart, let's go over some of our evocations. Light is the easiest and most power efficient to actuate. You just need a ton of LEDs and you can blind someone from a meter away with like 100 watts. You can also...
This has been explicitly banned as a war crime. Blinding someone with a very bright light. That is a war crime. You know what? I will look that up. Just so that you can't say cap. War criminal weapon. This convention prohibits the use of munitions that use fragments not detectable and treated illegal weapons. I always forget how that's written. I always forget how that's written. Wait, there's 2 hits? Blinding laser weapons. Yeah, that... We'll have this in the description.
You can also very easily collimate light, and the whole circuit is 3 things, which are all very easy to miniaturize and perform equally well at a distance. Sound is a pretty close runner-up. The only difficulty is you need a slightly more complicated circuit because of the oscillator, but you can still produce deafeningly loud levels of sound at about 150 watts. You can also very easily collimate sound, and it's a little more versatile than light in that you can make it sound like whatever you want if you have a microcontroller. Like you can play Fetty Wap at 200 decibels. Fire is difficult. It suffers in the materials in the distance department, but flamethrowers are a thing. Here's a hypothetical setup you could have. You could maglev a little gasoline ball and then attach it to a spark plug and a transceiver. And then as long as you can transmit in the 2.4 gigahertz band, you can just activate the spark plug whenever you want. Acid magic.
How to make a fireball. Let me show you something cool. Incendiary grenade. We do just have that. It's just called an incendiary grenade. That's fireball spell. We just call it an incendiary grenade. It just has a bunch of flammable material in it, an explosive, so that the flammable material goes everywhere, and then you just pull the pin, throw it, kablam.
You do need a spellcasting focus for this, but you can just put a little acid tank and then have a pneumatic system that spits it out. Water is pretty much the same thing, but there's no hope of controlling it or anything. It's just once it's out, it's out. Electricity magic is surprisingly tough because it can't really travel over air, and if you want to get past the human body resistance, you need something like 10 kilovolts, and that battery is going to waste immediately after. Now, frost magic. I'm not a chemist, but I cannot make this one work. There is a reaction between barium hydroxide and ammonium thiocyanate that is super endothermic, but it's not going to freeze the air. Like a fire spell isn't going to set the air on fire. It's a thermodynamics problem. There's just not enough energy anywhere to make that change in temperature. But let's think bigger, right? What about the other schools of magic? Abjuration is actually a pretty big winner, but only for counter spells. An EMP is essentially a counter spell, and an EMP is just a very strong and invisible wave of electromagnetic energy.
If you can theoretically detonate a nuclear weapon in the ionosphere, which is a layer of the atmosphere, you can detonate a nuclear weapon there and then destroys all the electronics in a 150-mile radius.
Energy. Transmutation is pretty difficult. I guess changing matter in general is pretty rough, but you could have servos under a material and it changes the texture or something. Or you could set the surface on fire with oil. It's not a lot. The rest of them, they're nah. I mentioned earlier in the video that we actually have an advantage over fictional magic. So let me introduce you to the beautiful world of engineering's most boring discipline, control systems. You know, in fictional magic, there's sometimes this idea that you are too strong or too weak and you can't really control your spells as much as you would want to. That's not a thing for us. Not even an inch. Anything that's controlled by electricity, you can pretty much send a signal to a receiver and within a microsecond, you can make it.
You can do that with the computer. It's called a remote access Trojan. A remote access Trojan is basically, well, it's in the name, a Trojan. What is a Trojan? Trojans are, if you know about the myth of the Trojan horse, you know, in practice, basically what it's like to deal with Trojans. A remote access Trojan is, well, the remote version of that, where the Trojan just needs to get in, and then you communicate with that, and then boom, you have control over the entire system. You can do that with cybersecurity.
Make it stronger or weaker or stop completely. And if we implement this control with the parts of our body that we know how to use so intuitively, like your hands or your voice commands or your brain waves even, you can do pretty much anything of what's been mentioned in this video with complete control just using your body. Evidently, this is something that people really fuck with. You see videos like Michael Reeves driving a car with his mind get millions of views because the idea of doing something that affects the outside world without having to mechanically interact with it is so cool. It's so tough. If there's one thing you take from this video, I hope that it's that all these things that you see in fiction are based around things that we find cool in real life. And we find them cool because there's a shred of a possibility that they can be done. And most of them can. to some degree. And if you just forget for a second,
Yeah, fireball. If we go very literal with fireball and you have to do the fireball, you're wasting a lot of energy on the fireball itself rather than the actual, well, damage. May I point to you to this? Again. This is just fireball. This is just fireball.
Things are supposed to make money and you just do them for fun. I think you'll find that the whole premise of this video is not actually as crazy as it seems. You actually can cast spells in a very broad sense of the term, but it's still possible. And you can adapt that to whatever you find cool and just do it, you know? But also you should learn engineering because it's
technically, oh, side tangent, but I use Linux. And the magic behind the VTuber avatar, the magic behind it is crazy. Because it's meant to run on Windows. It's meant to run on Windows. I'm running on Linux. And to an outsider, that is crazy. That is magic.
It's fucking awesome. Okay, that's all I have for you today.
Meanwhile, for an average Linux user, that is just an average Tuesday.
Bye then, goodbye.
And you're telling me that's not magic. Anyways, remember to comment, subscribe, join the Discord. I have a link in the description, so if you want to buy me gifts or can tracking, or you just want to send me money, that will be in the description. Bye-bye, and I'll screen out.